Just doing a quick video to show you my brand new Android TV box. It's the Egoiggo S95x. Now this is a cheap one. I did have, and I still have, the H96 Pro, which is an S912 chipset, and it was more expensive. I think I paid about £79 for that. You can get them cheaper now. But I've been having issues with it. It does run very hot, but the main problem has been intermittent freezing. So you'll be in the middle of something, you start pressing buttons and it won't respond. The only way to get it back again, pull your plug out, your power plug out, and boot up again. Sometimes it doesn't boot again for a couple of hours. I don't know if that's really down to heating, but it's not consistent enough to be able to say one way or the other. So I was getting fed up with it, so I thought I'm going to get another one because it's just too annoying. I didn't want to spend that sort of money again, so I thought I'd just get a cheap one this time. Doing the usual looks on Amazon, and it seemed like the best bang for buck was this Egoiggo S95x, which is $29.99, I believe. I believe I paid for that. And now don't get confused, it says S95x. It's an S905x chipset, so that could be a little bit confusing. So the main differences between that chipset and the S912, bear in mind they're both budget options, they're not powerhouses in any sense, but this has got 8 cores. It's got so there's 2 quad-core CPUs. That's one quad-core. That's 4 CPUs, a single quad-core CPU. But it's not 8 CPUs, as it's not one CPU with 8 cores on. It's the S912 has 2 separate quad cores, and the second one is like a cut-down version of the first one. Only comes in when you're doing something really heavy duty. So in normal use, I'm thinking, well, is there really that much difference between the two? The other difference is it has a much better graphics card. Well, not a card as such, is it? Better graphics solution. It's a little card inside there. And if you're doing gaming, then you have to get the S912, any sort of gaming. But if you're not doing gaming and you're not doing video editing, I was thinking, is there going to be a lot in it? And can I get away with the S905x chipset? Because I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just going to use it as a TV box, basically via Kodi, in a very kosher way, just streaming my own stuff over my own network. So, right, I bought it and I thought I'd give it a try. Before I get down to the benchmarks and all that, just what do you get in the box for your $29.99? First of all, you can see it's actually smaller than my S912, but they're both pretty small. So I mean, it's not like there's an issue with being able to fit one in and not the other. They're both pretty small. But so on the S905X, it's confusing that they call it 95X. But anyway, I've got 2 USBs, whereas I've got 4 USBs on the 912. Both have the micro SD slot. Both have the optical, the SPDIF out, Sony digital interface format, I believe, which you don't get on the 905. The X version added that amongst a couple of things, as it added VP9 4K support as used on YouTube. And you've got the HDMI, the power socket there, and the Ethernet. So that's the main difference. And also they both have the AV. But so the main difference on mine is 4 USB versus 2 USB. Other than that, it's going to be if you're gaming and video editing. One thing I will say is this power light on the front is really in your face, and if you've got this right in front of you, I could see that being quite annoying. I found it annoying. Your eyes are really drawn to that. Now, I don't know if I can lower that somehow internally. I haven't looked and haven't tried. I haven't really had it that long. But that could be an issue if you're going to have it right in front of you, you're looking all the time. But other than that, I have found it to be pretty good as a budget option. There isn't a lot, if anything, in normal use. So if I'm just playing and streaming videos on my network, and if I'm just doing anything, you know, within the apps, anything that doesn't require heavy duty graphics, then I don't see any difference. And I've done some benchmarks, which I'll get to in a minute. I don't see really anything in it. By the way, what else do you get on the box? You get this really basic remote, which you're going to want to upgrade to something that's got a proper keypad and a little mouse that you can use, which then probably you can get for about a tenner or something, but well worth it, because that is a really basic. You do get an HDMI lead, which they didn't have to give you, so that's something. You get a very small user manual, which really is telling you nothing that wouldn't be absolutely obvious. There's just a few troubleshooting hints there, and of course the power cable in the back. Just to give you quickly the specs of that. Well, I know it. I don't really need, but so basically, this is the basic version. So I've got 1 gig of RAM and I've got 8 gigs of internal memory in that, whereas I've got 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal memory. Now, Egoiggo, for another tenner, do another version of this where you do get the 2 gigs of RAM and the 16 gigs of internal memory. In hindsight, again, probably well worth it for another tenner, but I just went for the cheapest option that looked reasonable at the time. Just to say that what you don't get on here is the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi frequency and no AC. So it's actually it's up to the N protocol, BGN, and it's at 2 gigahertz on your Wi-Fi. You do, I think, even on the other box that's £10 more, you do get the 5 gigahertz, which again is well worth going for. And I'm kind of aggravated that I saved a tenner and a bit more cut down than I guess it needed to be, but it does work fine. So the important bits, it does support H265 at 60 frames a second decoding, but there's a difference between the S912 and the 905X, is that the 912 will encode H265 at 60 frames a second, whereas the 905X will only encode at H264 at 60 frames per second. But other than that, you're getting your VP9 YouTube 4K. You're getting over the 905 without the X. You're getting faster memory, not by a lot. I think it's 1200 millihertz against 1066. But I don't know if it's worth saving a bit of money. Other than, you know, I haven't had a 912 other than this. I don't know if the problems I've had with that are just down to this particular branding of that chipset. So I don't know. I haven't even bothered researching it, to be quite honest, because for that money I'll just get another box. It's not worth my time in looking at it, because I'm not gaming on it, you know, I have to say. So I'm going to show you now the benchmarks that I've done comparing the two that I've actually got in my possession. So these are the benchmarks that I'm getting when I'm comparing my H96 and my S95x. So starting with the 3D mark. So obviously I'm expecting it to show a big win for the H96, given that it has the better graphics solution on board, and there's the score on the H96 5975 against 4039. So basically it's a 50% higher score, as you can see. The interesting bit here is actually, if you look away from the pure graphics and look at the physics score, 8928, 28.3 frames per second. Look at the S95X. Physics is actually higher at 9365 and 29.7 frames per second. So when it comes to pure maths, weirdly, S95X, you know, the board that I've got is performing better according to this. Obviously, we already know it's going to be it's going to lag way behind on a graphics. But outside of that, doesn't matter. If you're just using it for streaming video, you know, as a TV box, if you're just watching TV, that's not really going to make much difference, is it? Because it's 2D. So yeah, that was interesting. The PC mark, again, a big win for the H96 3045 2240. The ones where it was a bit closer is, again, when it comes down to something a bit mathematical, data manipulation score, 1850, 1695, it was pretty close there. But where it's using graphics, yeah, I mean, video editing score 4544, it's over twice the score as the S95X. So still consistent with what I'm expecting. You know, the graphics obviously way better on the H96, but do you need to spend that money if you're just using it as a TV box? And, you know, in normal use, there's not really a lot of difference. Don't forget, there's half the RAM as well on this S95X, and you can get the version for another £10 that has twice the RAM and twice the internal flash memory. Just looking at the A1SD scores for the actual memory. So this is where it got interesting as well. On the H96, 31.6 and 12.6 read write, and then the S95X, 114 and 22. Yeah, it did pop up a message saying it looks like it was caching, and clearly it's caching, but you know, it's not a bad thing, is it? So basically it's using free RAM to cache reads and writes before it's actually committing to the flash memory. But that's the improved performance you get. So S95X looks like it's caching, and the H96 looks like it doesn't. So when it comes to the RAM scores, 3419 against 3312, nothing in it. So again, that was interesting. Just a quick look at some information from Egoiggo 64, and what we already know. The 8 cores on the H96 running 100 to 2000 millihertz. I don't know if it actually runs to 2000 millihertz. I see some people saying it only tops out at 1500, but it's capable of running at 2000. I didn't do anything to really see if that was the case, but anyway, reported as 100 to 2000 millihertz against 100 to 1500 millihertz on the S95X. Just a bit more general information, I think shocking there, other than what we already know. Installed 2 gigs on the H96, 1 gig on the S95X. So this is what I was really interested in, the Antutu Scores. And why? Because the user experience, the UX score, which is supposed to give you a feel of how it will feel in real life, in real use, you know, not when you're benchmarking it and using it to its extremes. How will it perform? 11940 on the H96, 13264 on the S95X. So that was a big shock. That was like a 10% or more win to the S95X, which is the cheaper board. Really surprised at those scores. I did run them again, and it did confirm that's the scores it wants to give. As you can see, 3D is not supported on the S95X for that for my board. That's a software limitation for the Antutu. That's not a problem with the S95X. And the other scores, CPU 12,251, which basically almost the same on the other CPU. But look at the RAM, 2168. 4418. It's scoring the RAM on the S95X twice as good. I mean, that also was a shock. But overall, then the feel I get is the user experience, if you're not doing video editing, if you're not doing gaming, is that the 95X is certainly a bigger bang for the buck. And you can argue, well, which one is going to give you a smoother performance. Especially, don't forget, this is the 1 gig box, and you can get the 2 gig box for another tenner on the S95X. It's going to be even better if you're going to need that RAM, especially if it's caching. It gives you more options there. The quick speed test over the Wi-Fi, S95X
download 32.12, 80.64 upload, compared to almost identical, slightly better on the H96, but in all intents and purposes, absolutely identical. Just a quick bit of information that we already knew from CPU-Z, telling me the 4 cores and the 8 cores. Again, telling me that the other one goes up to 2000 millihertz against 1.5 gigahertz. Just out of interest, the home screens, that's the H96, that's the S95x. I do prefer the H96, and it is a bit more customizable, but they both let you add your quick links there down the bottom. The memory recycle, could have really done without that. So yeah, those benchmarks, kind of how it felt in use, I have to say, in normal use is maybe slightly smoother. On the S95X, I was surprised. As I said, it may be issues with my H96 box, because I have had problems with it. And just to have a quick look at how it can work over your network with your Kodi. So I'm just going to give you a couple of comparisons showing with 1080 and 4K clips how smooth it will play, and I basically test it by using the skip through to see how quick it will buffer when you want to do a fast forward.
So one of the first matches I did try quite a long time ago now was the even matches. Now I didn't really get on with it if you're laying on it. The other makes they're called latex, you know, there comes in quite a lot. I mean, handy if you're not going to put it on much of the base anyway, but that they've lowered how much of the material you're using, 3 centimeters. I don't know. I don't know. Quite a lot. It's kind of comfortable, but then the memory foam, and then you've got there's all of these I had. In normal use, you are not really going to see a difference between the well, from what I found, there's no difference between the S912 and the 905X, unless you are gaming or video editing. And would you really want a video edit on one of these TV boxes? I doubt it, but you probably will game on it. If you're gaming, yeah, you've got to go for the 912. But outside of that, as an actual TV box, which is what they're sold at, you know, running Kodi, doing some streaming, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, whatever, no difference. And if anything, you know, the 905 was a little bit more consistent over Wi-Fi, you know, with the streaming. The 4K was a little bit less. It wasn't stuttery at all in the true sense, but the buffering was a little bit quicker than the 912. I can't explain that other than apparently there's caching going on with the internal memory on the 95X. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it at all, but that was the only difference that I really saw in the benchmarks. I mean, there's less memory in there to start with, so I can't really explain it, but that's basically it. If you want to spend $29.99 and haven't got a penny more, then yeah, I definitely recommend that, because for me it's been as good, and if not better, in use than the 9102. Also got to point out that it's fully rooted. Both of these are fully rooted, which means that if you want to install an app that requires, like Greenify, for example, that to really get the best out of it needs root permission, you get it on these. So out of the box, super user, root, access. So that's also not bad for $29.99, I would have said. So a recommendation from me if you're looking to spend $29.99 on a TV box, and this, you know, it's going to run all your TV apps as well. It's going to run your Netflix, and look at look at the size of it. Rather than one of those, basically a pen drive that you might get your Amazon Prime on or something like that. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. You know, you put it anywhere, take it anywhere. You know, if you on your travels, you can stick it into any telly. I think it's for $29.99. You can't really ask for more than that. Other than you can ask for a better remote. So another tenner will get you a decent keyboard. So hope you got something out of that, and thanks for watching.
UK